To take a deeper dive into what we can expect in the year ahead, we're going to talk to a couple more members of Congress. I've got our newest House member, Republican Ken Buck, who now has the 4th District seat that used to be occupied by Cory Gardner. Thanks for being with us, and what's it been like on the first few days on the job?
Well, it's my pleasure. It's an honor. It's a whirlwind of activity. I've enjoyed it. A lot to learn, but it's really an honor to be in Congress and doing the things that we're doing right now.
We're going to talk about the broader agenda in a second, but anything on your personal agenda that you want to definitely try to get done in this first session?
Well, there's a lot of interesting issues. There's important energy issues and water issues, transportation issues. Certainly the deficit and the debt are huge and are things that we need to take care of.
All right. We're going to broaden out the discussion. Can't let it just be one Republican here. We're going to bring in a Democrat. Jared Polis, Congressman representing the Boulder area and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us from D.C.
A pleasure.
Talk to me a little bit about your impression of President Obama's speech, because it seems like a lot of folks on the progressive end of the spectrum are pretty happy at the way he outlined his case.
Well, I thought it was a great speech. Really, he focused on values rather than a laundry list of ideas, values that I think all Americans agree on, making college affordable, helping the middle class make sure that we have access to the American dream. And there's progress made, but there's frankly a lot of work to be done. And as the president said, and these are kind of the words that helped America fall in love with him in the first place, there's no red America or blue America. We're all Americans, and we need to work together to make our country a better place.
Right. Ken Buck, your take on the president's agenda that he outlined?
I was disappointed that he didn't talk about the budget deficit. I was disappointed that he didn't talk about and acknowledge the $18.1 trillion of debt we have in this country. We saw a lot of program discussion from the president about the government having the answers and a top-down solution. I really think the best answers come from the people and have to work their way up, and I don't hear him acknowledging that, and I was disappointed.
I want to drill down on the president's tax proposals. He's talking about essentially increasing taxes on the rich and trying to help give some tax savings to folks in the middle class, as he would put it. Republicans have criticized that as a Robin Hood approach, but do you not agree that there's some problem that Congress should address with income inequality right now? And if it's not this, then what should it be? If not the tax
this
code?
president is directly responsible for income inequality and wealth accumulation, and he, again, doesn't acknowledge that. I think we all agree. Well, one of the burdens that we have on the middle class now are increased health care costs, and it's a direct result of Obamacare. We keep putting more and more burdens on the middle class. The wealthy are gaining wealth because of their investment in the stock market. The stock market's increasing. So many of the folks in the middle class, their wealth is tied up in their homes, and they aren't seeing an increase in that at this point. But I think what's so important to recognize is that government doesn't create jobs, and we need to make sure that we empower the private sector to create the jobs and help people accumulate the wealth.
Congressman Polis, when you boil this down and you hear we want to raise taxes on the wealthy and spread that out to everybody else, how is that not a Robin Hood style proposal, the way the critics would have you frame it?
Well, what we've seen since this president got elected is the unemployment rate in Colorado was 6.7% when he was elected. It's 4.3% now. We've had constant job creation quarter after quarter. The deficit is less than half of what it was. Still a lot of work to do. But keep in mind, the president doesn't spend money. Congress spends money. It'll be up to members of Congress like Ken Buck and myself whether there's an additional deficit, whether we let the president of any party spend any money. What the president talked about in his tax proposal is one of the biggest tax cuts in history. He's proposing a middle-class tax rebate, trying to undo some of the increases in taxes that many Americans feel that they've been falling under over the last decade. But we have to do it in a way that doesn't increase the deficit. So when we look at how to pay for the biggest tax cut in history, we have to look at where our tax code is out of whack. And the fact that people working for a living are paying twice the tax rate that people that invest for a living just doesn't make sense.
It strikes me, Congressman Polis, though, that we already have a progressive tax code. Republicans are arguing the exact opposite thing here, that there should be a flatter tax code. How come it's not working already if you do indeed have higher tax rates for higher earners right now?
Well, I'm all for a flatter tax, too. And to be clear, the president certainly didn't propose increasing the income tax rate for high earners. What he's looking at is something called the capital gains rate. So when you buy stock and it goes up a couple years later and you sell it, You don't pay the income tax, you pay a tax called the capital gain tax, and it's about a third less than the income tax. And a lot of wealthy people, now some wealthy people pay the income tax. If you're a sports star or a high-income doctor, you might be paying the income tax, or an actor. But wealthy people who invest are getting a preferential rate. What the president's saying is, it ought to be a lot closer. Whether you make your money by rolling up your sleeves and working, or whether you make it by picking stocks, they should be treated more equally in the tax code.
And what's wrong with that argument, Ken Buck? I mean, there are certainly people out there who make their money off investing, and that's what they do for a living, and they would be in the top brackets, would they not?
Well, first of all, what we need to do is we need to reduce spending. We're going to balance our budget by reducing spending. If we are going to look at revenue, it's going to be a growth in the economy. And the problem with increasing the capital gains rate is you're going to have less people investing in the factories, in the job-producing businesses that are going to grow the economy, to put people to work, to give people a higher standard of living. It's a disincentive for American jobs when you increase the capital gains rate.
Congressman Buck, while we're talking, I want to switch gears a little bit and move on to education. The president talked about free community college. A lot of Republicans jumped on that and said nothing in life is free. Let's be honest, it's got to be paid for somewhere. Do you agree with the idea and perhaps think there just needs to be a different way to fund it, or is free community college itself not a worthwhile thing to pursue?
Well, I think we should absolutely look at training programs and community college programs and give companies the incentives to offer those to their employees as well as to future employees, and to get communities involved in that kind of education. My problem is that whenever the federal government sticks its nose in something, it gets too involved. We have Common Core now. We're taking away the discretion of teachers to teach in their classroom so that they can teach to a test. It's wrong. And the federal government has ruined our K through 12 education system in the last 30, 40 years. We should not allow the federal government to poke its nose into higher education at this point.
Congressman Polis, if the Republicans won't agree to this whole idea of paying with a change in the tax code for this community college proposal, how on earth do you propose to get it done?
When I hear from families in Loveland and Broomfield and Fort Collins, one of the top things I hear is how can we make college and community college more affordable. I'm proud of our dual enrollment programs in Colorado that allow kids to get higher education credit while they're still in high school. But yes, we need to do more. In the 21st century, college is more important than ever before in being able to live a good, upwardly mobile, middle-class lifestyle. So, of course, we're open to discussion of how to pay for it. Lots of ideas are out there. They're on the table. Nothing's free. But being able to fund a good education so people can have jobs, be taxpayers, live their dream, that should really be our priority.
Congressman Buck, a lot of folks have talked about this is a window of opportunity that the Republicans have to try and get something done on immigration reform. There's been a lot of holding out for a comprehensive package, even though the parties are pretty far apart on what that looks like to them. Do you see any room to actually get a few immigration proposals through in this Congress?
Absolutely. In the next year, you're going to see proposals work their way through committees, get to the floor of the House, pass the House, and go on to the Senate.
Which would you like to see? Which pieces do you think are like the critical pieces we need to get done this year?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely essential that we pass a guest worker program and make sure that we have biometric measures so that we know that somebody is legally in this country, that employers have certainty when they hire somebody, that we have people that are contributing to our tax system. And I think that all starts with the guest worker program. I think if we reduce the demand for illegal labor in this country, we're not going to have the border security challenges that we have now. So I would start with a guest worker program. At the same time, we've got to be working on the border security measures, because it's going to take years to build the kind of structure that we need to make this country secure.
Congressman Polis, what do you think of those particular priorities? Do you see room to actually get something done this year?
Well, the very first action taken by this new Republican Congress with regard to immigration was to effectively defund and deport the Dreamers and their parents. These are kids who grew up here, who have registered, who've had background checks, who are legally working or attending college. The Republican Congress voted to deport them. That's not what I call immigration reform. That's a deform of immigration. It makes our immigration problem that much worse, increases the number of people here illegally. We need border security. We need workplace authentication. We need to require people to get registered, pay fines and recognition of their violations of the law, and restore the rule of law. And we haven't seen a single bill come down the pipe from the Republican side that does any of those things yet. But, I'm going to to stay optimistic and hope that we do solve it. Because I can tell you one thing: if we don't do anything about immigration, instead of 11 million people here illegally today, it'll probably be 15 million people in 2 or 3 years.
Do you agree? Vote to deport?
Well, I have to tell you, it's ironic that Congressman Polis would talk about the rule of law. The president has consistently violated the rule of law. He's refused to enforce the rule of law, and he has caused such a problem with trust on this issue that is the primary reason, I believe, that we are moving so slowly forward. And we've got to make sure that this president is willing to enforce the laws that are on the books, enhance those laws, and create even better laws. But the immigration issue is every bit as much a problem from the executive branch as it is from the legislative branch.
How much is this year?
Well, and that's just, it's just not, some of that's just not factually accurate. I mean, President Obama had twice the level of deportations than the previous administration under President Bush, and all that he's doing with regard to the executive action is prioritizing who should be deported. So you deport criminals first, ahead of parents of American children.
He is not deporting those that have committed domestic violence crimes. As a prosecutor, I find that incredibly offensive, Jared. He has put them in a Category 2 level. That's offensive to all Americans. That someone that's in this country illegally, working in this country illegally, and committing the crime of beating a woman would be in a Category 2. That's what your president has said is his priority.
Ken, you and I both voted for an amendment that would prioritize that. If it was a narrowly crafted bill that wanted to give guidance to the president on who to prioritize, I think there'd be openness with regard to something like that, as long as you deal with the very real issue that some states have where they have must-arrest statutes, and we want to make sure that these are actual convictions and not just simply who was arrested because the police had to arrest somebody. But look, if that's the real issue, Ken, that's a minor one. We can obviously get past that and make sure that perpetrators of domestic violence are deported as expeditiously as possible.
The reason the states have had to act is because the president has abrogated his responsibilities to enforce the immigration laws. And I agree with you, the states shouldn't have to act. And it's one of the reasons why I hope soon we will develop the kind of immigration law, bipartisan immigration law, that gets through the House that will actually make sure that this country is safe from people coming here illegally.
We're coming close to time. I want to get in one more topic here. I want to talk about all of the overtures with 2016 just around the corner. Everyone's, speculating about how much of the agenda we're seeing laid out right now has really to do with that. And how much is the next year about drawing a contrast between your two parties ahead of 2016, Congressman Polis?
Well, I think it's really about governing. We just came out of an election. I think the last thing the American people want to hear is posturing for a new one. So we have a real opportunity to reduce the budget deficit, to improve the place of America in the world, to make education more affordable, to fix our broken immigration system. There's a window of time before Americans start thinking about the next election or who's running for president. And I think in this year, we need to make the most of that. Congress, both parties working with the president to actually address the pressing national issues facing our country.
Quickly, Congressman Buck?
I agree with Congressman Polis, and I am looking forward to working with Congressman Polis on fracking and other energy development in Colorado and around the country to make sure that we create the kind of economy that we can reduce the deficit and really make this country the leader once again in the world economy.
Congressman Ken Buck, our newest congressman, thank you so much for joining us. Jared Polis from Washington, D.C., thank you for being with us. Appreciate you both showing up on Balance of Power.
Thank you.